Good afternoon, and welcome to the Housing Department Code Enforcement, what to expect during your SCEP inspection. My name is Senior Inspector Nicholas with the LA Housing Department. I worked previously in the SCEP unit in the South Office, which encompasses City 8, 9, and 15. I currently supervise the West Region, which is Cities 5, 10, and 11. It's going to be a short presentation I have to give to you guys. I can't see any faces, but hello. Just want to get a little intro. I've been with the department for 15 years. I started with building and safety as a clerk typist, and I promoted to LA Housing as an assistant inspector, where I worked my way up. During that time, it's given me lots of experience in dealing with the public. My main focus has been in SCEP, which is the Systematic Code Enforcement Program. So I know a lot about it, and I can teach a lot of people about it and what to expect and how to get ready for upcoming inspection. If you guys have any questions, please use the chat function of this meeting. Also, shortly after the presentation, there will be a small survey that we would welcome you to complete before leaving. My first thing I'd like to know is my audience and who am I speaking with. So if you can please, just in the chat function, just use M if you're a manager, or O if you're an owner, or T if you're a tenant, and A if you're an advocate representative.
Oh.
Great. I wish I could see faces out there. I can't see any faces. Too many of you guys out there. Okay, great. All right, so I have a small, like I said, PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to go through the presentation. Afterwards, there's going to be a question and answer period. Again, you guys can use the chat function to ask those questions. And I'll have my contact information, so you can feel free to email me or call me anytime if you have any questions. So we'll begin. Okay. Okay, so again, this is the Systematic Code Enforcement Program workshop, and the acronym we use is SCEP, SCEP. And this is the LA Housing Department, or Housing and Community Investment Department, which is different than the Housing Authority. So I like to make that disclaimer in the beginning. A lot of people, they think we're one and the same, and we inspect the same thing. We don't. The Housing Authority inspects Section 8 units, or units receiving stipend or supplemented income for rent, and we inspect all units regardless of how rent is paid. Okay, so even your Section 8 units are subject to SCEP. Okay, let me give you a little background. How we came about, the city recognized that there was a housing crisis throughout, as there currently is. With that, we realized there was a low inventory of quality housing throughout the city. So there's a lot of dilapidated property, property that wasn't maintained, and there was no authority having jurisdiction to enforce that owners, keep up with their property. Again, deteriorated housing stock. And then we had a couple of incidents that are unique to our city here. If you've been here long enough, I was in high school when this happened. I thought my school was burning down. I was like right there central to it. In 1992, there was a civil unrest due to the verdict in the Rodney King beating. And then in 1994, again, I was still in high school, my senior year, there was a Northridge earthquake which occurred on Martin Luther King Day, I remember specifically, and woke everyone up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So with that, of course, Northridge was the highest hit. If you guys are owners of property with tuck-under parking, you do now know that you have story retrofit that you have to deal with, which means that you're now tasked with, shoring up your structures through building and safety. So if you guys know about that, you know what a pain it is. But unfortunately, something that we had to deal with, because we recognized that there was a structural safety issue when it came down to the damaged properties during that time. Okay, in 1987, a Blue Ribbon Committee was put together to basically address the issues of the housing stock and when it came to rental housing in the city. In 1993, our department was formed as the Los Angeles Housing Department, and we changed our name in 2013 to the Housing and Community Investment Department. However, just found out about a month ago that it's changed back to the Los Angeles Housing Department. So I don't get to say that long name again. So we are now Los Angeles Housing Department again, and our logos and letterhead will be changing shortly. All right, there's a challenge that's unique to LA as well. According to the 2010 census, which, we just had a recent census, but 2010, the population of the city was 3.1 million. Of that 3.8, I'm sorry. Of the 3.8, about 2.3 million people were renters, and they rented about 750,000 rental units throughout the city. Okay. Another challenge was the size of the city. The city of LA stretches over 400 square miles. That's pretty big. We're one of the biggest cities in the country, as you know. And that's from Silmar to San Pedro, and scattered throughout. There's other cities, Inglewood and Beverly Hills, and those cities. But we have a pretty long stretch, as you can see through the map. Okay. Also, was the issue of terrain, of area and terrain. Again, Silmar to San Pedro, and the social economic issues. So we have our large cities, and different sides of the city have different issues that they face. There was predatory lending, and if you were a victim of that in the mid 2000s, 2008, 2006, you realize that some of the properties were lost to foreclosure because of predatory lending. And our staff, currently, I don't know what the count is, but I know we had, at the time of my creation of this PowerPoint, it was about 90 inspection staff in our department. So you can realize 90 inspection staff for 750,000 units, properties, not even units, 750,000 properties throughout the city. It's going to take us pretty long to get around to each one of those properties. All right, so let's talk about the two types of inspections. All right, there are two types of inspections. One is the SCEP inspection, and the other is complaint. So SCEP inspection, we're notifying the owner, look, owner, we're going to be at your property in a month or two to inspect XYZ, whatever amount of units you have there, including the interior and exterior of those units and the common area. Complaint inspection, we get a call, either constituent calls, the actual tenants themselves. It could be a council representative, or the fire department calls us and says, or puts in the online complaint saying, I have an issue with a property and we have to address those issues. A lot of the times we address those issues without notifying the owner, okay? So again, SCEP is department controlled and the complaints are tenant controlled. And when I say tenant, I mean whoever calls us. So it could be a tenant or neighbor. Tenant controlled is specifically when talking about the interior of a rental unit. Okay, our jurisdiction is properties containing 2 or more units on a lot. So if you have a lot with a duplex or 2 single family dwellings, those are all subject to our inspection. So 2 units or more are always subject to our inspection. Now, whether one of those units has to be offered for rent, and that's a question we get a lot. Sometimes the owners live on the property and they feel like, well, your ordinance says that it's 2 or more rental units on a lot, but it's speaking specifically about how many units are built compared to how many units are offered. As long as it's one that's offered, the property is subject to a SCEP inspection of the rental unit. Okay, and there's exemptions. All properties in the city, the housing jurisdictions must be registered by the last day of February each year. And the owners, if you property, I'm sorry. Okay, the owners, if you live on the property, a lot of questions are, why is my unit scheduled to be inspected? One, we don't know which one is your unit because we don't know. If you live at 123 Main Street, we don't know that 123 Main Street is owner occupied. We don't know if ABC is occupied or 123 or half quarter for it. So it's up to you to notify us during that registration period that your unit is not offered for rent and it's owner occupied. Also the same thing, if it's not offered for rent or vacant, you have to say, you know, you're assessing that unit specifically is not going to be offered for the entire year of your registration. So either your family member lives there and they're not paying rent in the traditional way, or they don't pay rent at all, or the unit is vacant. Okay, now let me go about the inspection process. During this process, we mail out the notice of inspection to the owners of the property 30 days prior to the inspection. Actually, we tend to operate on the 60-day notice for those inspections to give the owners a little bit more chance to be able to respond and say, you know, can we reschedule for another date? You know, something like that. A frequently asked question is, why didn't I receive an inspection notice? And you have to know that when you register your unit, you have to update your address in the rent registration and code enforcement. So sometimes we have an old address in our code enforcement system, but rent, through your rent registration has your current address. Okay, and we post a notice for the inspection at least 1 week prior to the inspection. Our assistant inspectors and our inspection staff usually do that at least 2 weeks to a month prior to the inspection to let the owners know that we intend to inspect the property. Okay, and we inspect all apartments, so all units, accessory structures, common areas, and exterior, okay? We issue a notice in order to comply or a notice of substandard conditions if the violations are found during the inspection. And we conduct the reinspection at least 37 days later. So it's 30 days plus 7 days mailing is what we operate on. So we give you a 30-day compliance plus 7 days that it takes for the mail to get to you. And that's usually when it's scheduled for reinspection at least. And now days are added depending on the inspector's calendar or holidays or the weekend, okay? After that period, the inspector can choose to close the case if you're in compliance 100%, grant an extension if you've met criteria that we all said is basically that you've shown a concerted effort to comply, or refer the case to a general manager's hearing in our department. Reinspection, of course, when we close the case, the inspector clears all violations and officially closes the case. So that means that you have 0 violations remaining at the property and you're good for another 4 years. That's something I didn't speak on. So SCEP inspections occur periodically, and the period for a SCEP inspection is at least every 4 years. So if you had an inspection in 2017, look forward to getting a notice at least by this year that you'll have an inspection soon. And know that COVID prolonged some of those, so you probably have a little reprieve of another year, okay? Inspector clears all violations and officially closes the case. And the owner may visit the department's website to verify the case closure within hour of the inspection, okay? My screen is a little cut off, so I'm not able to see everything. Hold on one second. All right, in order to grant an extension, the inspector may grant a 30-day extension of time for the owner to complete the repairs based on a significant progress at the reinspection. There's always a question, if I need more time because I'm not done, can I postpone the reinspection? And the answer is generally no. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. However, as a senior, as a supervisor, I usually just operate on no. We have to see what you've done to warrant an extension or a postponement of the inspection. We usually don't postpone unless there's a specific situation. I won't get into that because I don't want to give away the house secrets, okay? All right, the department bills the owner $201.50 automatically if a third inspection is conducted within the same case. So meaning if we go for a reinspection and you request an extension, know that that third inspection is going to be at your cost, okay? So the first inspection is the initial inspection where we go out to see what violations we have. The second inspection is when we go out to see if you cleared or corrected those violations. Any additional inspections are at a cost of $201.50. And I want to add one caveat to that. There is a late fee that is assessed 30 days after that bill is issued. So if you get a bill and it's dated May 1st, you have into June 1st to pay that bill, or it's a date on there specifically that you have to pay that bill. If you pay that bill on or after June 2nd, that bill is now going up to $705.25, okay? So know that we can't, inspectors are not to waive fees. We can't waive late fees. It's up to you to keep up with your records and know when you need to pay a bill, okay? If I have a special circumstance, can my inspection fee be waived? And the answer is yes. And I won't get into that, okay? But just know that it's possible. When the violations remain after the compliance date, the general manager shall conduct the hearing, and that's per the city's ordinance, chapter 16, section 1. Okay. The hearing officer may determine to refer the case to the city attorney's office for criminal prosecution, or place the property in a rent escrow account program. And that's based on the severity of the remaining violations that the owner fails to comply. And the tenants have a right to a 10 to 50% reduction at the max of rent until all violations are corrected and case closure procedures are concluded. And here's the number for REIT. So if you've ever been in REIT, you guys kind of know what it is, okay? I see a couple of questions that I'll get to at the end as far as the link is concerned. Okay, so complaint inspections. Complaints may be filed online, by phone, and formally in person. All of our offices are currently closed to the public, but those are the two ways you can file a complaint: online or in person. I mean, online or by phone currently. Complainants remain anonymous to the public. So an owner cannot call and say, well, who called and who gave the complaint. But just know we get a call at 123 Main Street regarding a leak in the kitchen. That is probably the person that lives at 123 Main Street in that unit, okay? So there's no need to do any investigation on that, but we cannot disclose who the complainant is, all right? Complainants must be able to provide access to the property. So when it comes to someone complaining about an interior violation, they have to be someone who can provide access to that unit. The inspection process for that is constituents submit the complaint. Office staff responds within 72 hours to schedule the complaint. Non-urgent complaints are scheduled according to the inspector availability, and urgent complaints are expected as soon as possible. So let me just get on that a little bit. I know it's a little off subject for SCEP. I just wanted to let you guys know, if we receive a complaint regarding someone who doesn't have a heater during the wintertime, so that's month between November and April 15th, those are considered urgent. If you get a call about no hot water inside that unit, that's considered urgent. If we get a call regarding excessive leak, a gushing leak, or ceiling collapsing, that's considered urgent, and we respond urgently, and we give you what is called a 2-day order, okay? And that's a shortened compliance for you guys to go and address and start the work to remedy the issue. So let me get back to the presentation. Notice in order to comply is issued if violations are found. And the same with the other SCEP inspection, we conduct a reinspection 37 days later. We can close the case, grant an extension, or refer it to a hearing. Okay, other enforcement tools we have are stop work orders. So a lot of times, a lot of owners get a little zealous and they tend to start work to their units that sometimes requires permits, and they get caught, and we have to issue what is called a stop work order. So stop work order means stop work until you acquire a permit from building and safety, okay? Orders the cease of construction work and requires permits, and includes lead safe work practices if not being used. Okay, so I'm sorry, I just misread that. includes when lead-safe work practices are not being used. So a lot of times owners will start painting and start spray painting and leaving paint chips in, units where properties where children live, or they can consume paint chips. Those are considered hazardous. So we issue a stop work order for you guys to stop work and resume when you start using lead-safe work practices. Okay. Violators may be individually cited and fined if they violate the stop work order. Okay. An occupant notice in order to comply, those are for extreme sanitation issues. So not just someone who's not a tidy person or someone who's not good at housekeeping, but someone who their unit is now a fire hazard due to the condition. So they excessively store items in their unit to the point that where the unit, you're not able to go inside. If you guys watch Hoarders, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's extreme, excessive storage inside the unit, okay? And the property owner is also cited because you are the first person responsible for the property, and you can use our orders if need be to get action out of that tenant through the civil recourse, okay? These are some examples of what we're talking about when we say tenant sanitation. This is considered excessive. There's trash and everything being stored inside the unit. I briefly spoke about this. The 2-day order to repair addresses immediate hazards. If work is not commenced within the compliance period of 48 hours and completed in a timely manner, repairs may be conducted by the department approved contractor with fees imposed to the owner. So basically, if you guys don't fix it, we'll hire a contractor to fix it, but we're going to charge you more than that cost. And, it's probably going to be more worth it for you guys to hire a contractor to go out there and address the issue. Again, during the winter months, inoperable heaters is considered an imminent hazard. Did I skip something? Okay, orders to vacate. Orders to vacate dwellings of unapproved dwellings or portions thereof that pose an extreme hazard to the residents when occupied. So those are considered, if you add on something that a structure that's unapproved, or you have people living in sheds or garages with no egress, and they have gas burning appliances or using propane to heat or cook, those are considered extreme hazards, and we will often issue an order to vacate during those times. Some may require immediate vacation, meaning that we want the people out immediately. And examples of a lack of emergency egress, meaning that have no way out in case of a fire. A lack of fire warning devices, meaning there's no smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, or sprinkler systems throughout the structure. Structural failure, meaning that, of course, the structure is compromised and about to collapse. And relocation benefits may be paid by the department with fees imposed to the property owner. So just know if we have to relocate tenants on your behalf, there will be a lien assessed to your property. Be prepared. Okay, so this is what you're here for. You want to be prepared. The first way to be prepared, if you're a new homeowner, I always suggest that you do research on your property. Researching and interpreting permits and code violations and conducting repairs. So I'm going to go over those 3 aspects right now. Okay, when researching permits, there's a couple of ways to do it. So where to obtain permits, of course, Building and Safety Office, which are currently closed, I believe, to the public. So you're not able to do that, but you can go online if you have access to the internet. Their website is www.ladbs, Los Angeles Building and Department of Building and Safety.org. And if you look up the word Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety, building information online, you can pretty much be linked straight to where the permits are shown, okay? These other 2 are, this other one is a link too. So IDIS, and that's for older permits. And here's the link to that. And I'll leave this up so you guys can write it down if need be. And then we also use county assessor records. So another caveat, when we use county assessor records do not legalize structures. Only permits from building and safety do. But county assessor records gives us an idea when the structure was erected on the property, if it was done after an assessment of county property taxes. Okay, so usually that happens through a transfer of sale or transfer of ownership or refinance. They tend to send a county assessor out there, and that's when we usually find new structures that were not approved. Okay. All right, interpreting permits. Determining what has been approved. Okay, review original permit, subsequent permits and plans if available. Okay, and only original permits and related permit alterations determine what has been approved. For a change of use, a permit should be issued which specifies what has been changed. Unrelated permits do not suffice. So if we're looking at the fact that you have a garage conversion and you show us a permit where you legalize in addition to the front of the house, that does not approve the garage being converted into a dwelling. So make sure that, if you're supplying something that is proof that this structure is legal, it has to be related to what's been done, okay? Only permits with final approval are valid, and I want to say that because a lot of owners, they will pull a permit and never get a final inspection from building and safety. The application itself is not proof of the structure being legal. You have to get inspections from building and safety and a final sign off from building and safety. Okay, so this is how to read a permit. Let's see if I can minimize. Okay. All right, so in the first thing, we have the address, of course, the building use, which is residence, the permit number down at below, which is 1197, the date of the permit, which is January 16th, 1914. And here's the building description, and then lists size of proposed building. It's a 20 by 20, and the height is 14 feet. And this is the permit type. It's a permit for the erection of a frame building. So usually it's going to be a 1, 2, or 3 that we're looking at. The 1s and 2s usually tell us that it's a new building or new addition. The 3s are alterations to an existing building. Okay, so this is a permit number 3, again, like I said, which is the alteration. And this is to convert a garage to a storage. And it listed here, convert garage to storage, new carport, and rec room addition to existing structure should be, and this to comply with the order. So in 1987, this person was caught by then building and safety with the garage conversion. So this is a permit to legalize that conversion. Okay, code violations. What are inspectors looking for? All right, we're looking for violations of the City of Los Angeles building codes pertaining to existing rental housing stock. And that's again, LAMC 161.401. And that includes building, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and fire safety issues, etc. Existing non-conforming. So this is what, we get a lot when it comes to when we find things that are identified as unapproved or illegal. Existing non-conforming properties may remain in the conditions to which they were approved unless conditions have been altered or there are retroactive requirements governing them. So meaning that, if you built a structure back in 1961 and your windows were allowed to be over 44 inches high, you're allowed to keep those windows as long as you don't change those windows out, meaning change the frame out. If you change the frame out, you have to conform to the current code and the heights that are required. And then when it comes to retroactive requirements, those are speaking of like smoke detectors are retroactive, carbon monoxide detectors are retroactive. Usually those are the ones that speak out to me as retroactive. And this is what is called grandfathered in. So grandfathered in does not mean, just to clarify, it does not mean something that was built unapproved and never approved in any kind of way. And now, since it's been there for 100 years, you think it's illegal. That's not what it's grandfathered in means, okay? All right, let me go back one. All right, so I'm just gonna get into a couple of violations. So smoke detectors are required in all sleeping rooms and rooms giving access to those sleeping rooms. Carbon monoxide detectors are required in the vicinity of those sleeping rooms and every floor. Security bars should have quick releases, and double key deadbolts are not allowed in any exit door. So meaning that you cannot have a key to get outside the unit. If you have a lock that requires the key to get outside, it's unapproved. You can have a thumb turn deadbolt or something like that, but you cannot have a lock that requires a key to get out of the unit in case of a fire. Because who's going to look for a key during a fire? Okay. Or what if the kids are, you know, the ones that see the fire first and they need to exit and they need to go knock on mom's door that's engulfed in flames? You know, we have those situations that come about. Okay. So we want to make sure that you guys know that's why we don't allow double key locks. Fire alarm system, building alarm system should remain free from the trouble panel, the trouble warning. So if you have a large building or own a large building that has an error or a trouble panel, just know that, hold on, I'm getting an important call. Just know that, you know, you have to maintain those and you have to get that fixed right away, okay? So this is an example of a window with security bars and no release, okay? And this is an example of a hand release. This is a missing release handle. And these are examples of foot pedals for security bar release, okay? The top is what I told you is an approved deadbolt with the thumb turn. The bottom is not approved because it requires a key to exit the building, to exit the unit. So those are not approved, okay? Here we have a fire extinguisher that may not be charged. I cannot tell from this photo, but just know the glass should be in place. The extinguisher should be charged in a green, and it should be not more than 3 years outside of the stamp. So if it's stamped for 2018, that means that by the end of this year, you should get another fire extinguisher, another inspection from the fire department to come stamp your new certified extinguisher. All right, and this is an example of a smoke detector installed within 3 feet of a ceiling fan blade. The reason why we don't approve that, and a dangling, but the reason why we don't approve it is because if there's a fire and the smoke and the fan is on, the smoke is gonna go get pushed away from the detector and it will never go off in this unit, in this room. Here's an example of a missing smoke detector. All right, the plumbing. So we have defective or leaking fixture. So those apply to sinks, vanities, showers, tubs, and toilets. So if you have a leak in any one of those are considered a violation, even if it's a drip. Caulking, plumbing fixture connection should be properly sealed from water intrusion. So that's around tubs and around sinks. And plumbing fixture surface, which means the surface of the actual sink or tub should be free from any damage. So there's no rust or exposed metal inside those basins or tubs, okay? Block drains, drains should flow freely. Loose fixtures applies to faucets, lavatories, which when I say lavatories, I mean the actual sink. So if you have a pedal sink or even a vanity sink, those are considered lavatories. So those need to be secured. And toilets also need to be secured. And just one thing when it comes to a toilet, if you have a loose toilet, make sure you check the flooring underneath, because sometimes it's been loose for a while and your tenants won't tell you, and there's now water intrusion and the subfloor is now damaged to where it's causing damage to the floor. So you will never be able to tighten that toilet the way it needs to be because the wood underneath has been compromised and the toilet will always remain loose and keep getting worse. And sometimes it will fall to the floor. Just know that. Water heater straps. So Los Angeles requires that all water heaters are properly secure from displacement during the earthquake. Water heater temperature and pressure relief extension pipes should be installed, should terminate in an approved location. So we advise to terminate to the exterior. However, that's not always possible. So at least if the pipe terminates at least between 6 and 24 inches from the floor, most inspectors are okay with that. And if they're not, you can always speak to a supervisor to get clarification. Okay. Unapproved plumbing, water heater replacement requires a permit and is a common source of unapproved plumbing. So I just wanted to add that you will never change the water heater out because you want to. It's not simply, oh, I just want a new water heater. That's not usually what happens. What usually happens is the water heater goes out and you need to replace it as an emergency. We understand that. However, after you do replace the water heater, you need to look to get that replacement legalized through obtaining a permit from Building and Safety. And that has to be done with a licensed plumber with a current license and a current business license with the City of Los Angeles. Here's an example of what I said, plumbing fixture surface. So that's the rust in the bottom of a tub around the drain. These are flex drains that we always see. I call them accordion drains. These are not approved in the city. Yes, Home Depot sells them. Yes, all day long. However, this is not an approved installation. You have to have rigid plastic or metal pipe. You cannot have accordion drains. This is an example of unapproved plumbing. There's a laundry washing machine that's installed at the exterior without permit. So there's gas lines, electrical, and water lines to this exterior that have not been approved by Building and Safety, and it will get called for you to either remove it or legalize it. Building Safety is not going to legalize it without a structure around it, and you're gonna have to approve that too. So just know that you're most likely going to have to remove any exterior laundry. Okay, these are examples of the straps that I was telling you at the top and bottom. So the top third, the bottom third, coming out from the side is the temperature and pressure relief pipe that needs to terminate at least between 6 and 24 inches from the ground or to the exterior. This is an example of one without strapping or a relief pipe. Here again is a close-up of where the pipe should be. And with relief pipes, we accept copper, galvanized, or CPVC, which is not very commonly purchased. So we advise just go ahead and buy a metal pipe. So it's copper or galvanized pipe, and it cannot be threaded at the end. Make sure there's no thread at the end of the pipe. Okay, and this an example of a pipe going through a wall. So this is the water heater closet, and the pipe is going through the wall, and there's a big open hole where rats, and if this catches on fire, the fire can go straight into the structure. Okay. All right. Electrical violations we look at commonly are GFCI, which means near any water source within 6 feet, you're required to have GFCI or ground fault circuit interrupter outlet. If you have an existing non-conforming, which means that if your property was built before a certain era and you have not touched that outlet whatsoever, you can maintain the outlet you have. However, if you change out those outlets and we go and see a Decora outlet, we know for a fact that you should now have a GFCI, and you're required to come up to the current code and install one at the countertop. Okay. Cover plates, missing or defective switch and outlet plates, so make sure those are in good condition, not cracked, split, or broken, or missing. Exposed wiring. Wiring should be concealed and improved conduits and junction boxes, meaning that you should not have Romex on the surface of your wall. There should be no hanging wires or anything coming out of the ceiling or out of the structure. Okay. Light fixtures should be in working condition and free from defects. So you shouldn't have to do your switch right between on and off in order to turn it on. It should be a solid on, solid off without any sparks or any defect or any broken switches. Okay, so change those out if they need to be repaired. Defective receptacle, meaning outlets should be in proper working condition There shouldn't be any sparks or burnouts coming out from the outlet or any broken pieces of plastic in the outlet. Those need to be changed out if the outlet does not support a plug, okay? Unapproved electrical or any unapproved electrical or any unapproved wiring or electrical upgrades are common. So make sure any wiring or new electrical panels or upgrades that you do all require permits, and those are all licensed contractors with this licensed contractors with a current business license and a current contractor's license and approved to operate within the city. This is an example of a GFCI or GFI is commonly referred to. Take out that C for some reason. And this is an example of a broken outlet and a missing or broken cover. And that was not a grounded outlet either. So the person's now going to have to, they don't sell ungrounded outlets anymore. So you're going to have to now ground this outlet with the third hole. Okay, this is an example of a missing dead front cover. So that's the missing metal box, metal plate that belongs on this breaker panel to prevent people from touching the wiring. Only, electricians should be able to open those and, work on wiring. So we don't want any kids or yourself thinking you know what you're doing and you go and touch a wire and now you're shocked or electrocuted. Okay. This is an example of, they cut out too many blanks, they took out too many blanks and now there's open, so that needs to be fixed by either putting in a blank breaker or putting another metal piece back there. Here's a loose light switch. And this is a broken light switch with all kind of Mickey Mouse patching and paint around it. Okay, and a broken switch fit cover, damaged wall, you see all that here. All right, briefly, I'm gonna speed up a little bit faster. So walls and ceilings, make sure your walls and ceilings are free from defect, meaning that they're painted, no cracks, and that all the wall patches are sealed with paint, okay? Doors and windows, make sure that they operate, open and closed properly. Floor covering, make sure that there's no broken tiles or tripping hazards inside the unit. So if you have any loose carpet that needs to be stretched back out or any seams that have been frayed and that cannot be repaired, you need to make sure that you repair that or replace that carpet or repair the seam if possible, okay? Premises maintenance, make sure that your property is in good condition as visually, meaning there's no trash and debris or overgrown lawn. The counter and drain board. So countertops should be free and intact from and impermeable. So did I spell that right? Impermeable. So meaning that their water cannot intrude the countertop. So if you have a Formica countertop, you shouldn't have any chips or nicks in it to where water can now start getting into the fiberboard. So we want you guys to go ahead and epoxy seal those or replace those if need be. Okay. Same thing with tile. The same thing. You need to make sure that any cracked tiles or missing grout has been corrected. Okay. Stairs or deck surfaces. Stairs and deck surfaces should be maintained, and they should be free from defect as well. So any big nicks in the concrete or peeling paint and wood decks or wood stairs, you need to make sure you paint those. Or dry rot damage, you need to make sure that those are all corrected, okay? Here's an example of open storage on the property. These are excessive open storage. So things that we allow to be stored openly are usually items that are for the outside. So exterior patio furniture, grills, kids' toys like bikes, those sorts of things, but there's a limit to that as well. I just want to add to, you can't have a whole bike shop that you brought home. It has to be, a real, you have to really, look at it and make sure that you're not creating a hoarding condition because we don't want to go onto your property and think we walked onto the set of Stanford and stuff. Okay, so these are recyclables that have been stored between the buildings. Yes, recycle, we love the earth, but there's a point to where you have to turn these items in. So if your tenants are doing this, make sure you encourage them to constantly turn their recyclables in. This is considered open storage and you could be cited for it. This is an example of missing doorknob. Here, there's a window being propped open with a hammer. I would hate to see it that fall. So propped open with a hammer, book, whatever, or laundry detergent or dishwashing liquid, that cannot be. The window should be able to open and close freely, and if it's open, it should stay open without being propped open. Here's an example of a damaged foundation vent screen on the side of a building. Cabinets and drawers are off the hinge and off track. This is an extreme example of mildew damage to a unit where I guess the person was taking showers and never opened the window. This is surface mildew, so I assume that that's what the condition was rather than water infiltration. This tends to happen when people take steamy showers and they don't open the doors and windows afterwards. This is an example of a leak above. So you can tell the water, the mildew starting. We don't say mold because we don't test for mold. So we can see that there's moisture damage that started above the shower in the ceiling coming from the unit above. You can see that they've done one patch job, but I guess that didn't work and it's leaking again. Here's an example of a failed attempt to patch a wall, keep privacy, or not to be able to see the studs. So they used cardboard and never went back to properly patch and paint this shower area. This is another example of broken tiles, and again, this is open wall behind the tile. This is one of the most extreme examples I've seen of moisture damage. Here you can tell that this whole drywall is going to have to be ripped out. I would probably venture to say that there is some kind of spores inside this unit, but again, we do not test for mold in our department. A example of peeling paint, and it looks like there was probably a leak here before, and now there's a big, large chunk of paint that's falling, probably a piece of the ceiling as well. Broken tiles and the carpet with no transition strip between the two. Frayed carpet in the threshold between rooms. So at this point, this carpet needs to be replaced. It's unsalvageable. It's down to the webbing, and it's rippling throughout. This is what I was referring to with the countertops. So here on the left, you have the formatic countertops that have been damaged. On the right, you have the tile that's broken and damaged and not been properly repaired. Exterior paint, that's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure that there's no peeling paint on any surface. So if it's a wood surface, stucco surface, make sure that you have no peeling paint and that it's that stucco or that wood is protected from the weather. So once you strip the paint off, you have to make sure you repaint, okay? Window and door glass, make sure that free from cracks or broken glass. Exterior walls, again, that's dealing with the stucco or siding, making sure that there's no holes in the walls on the exterior to where animals or anything can get inside. Roof weatherproofing, make sure that roof leaks could cause great damage, and if left unattended, could cause even more harm. So these are extreme examples of peeling paint. I have seen many structures like this, especially in the beach areas where the salt water eats at those properties a lot. This is a window sill where there's dry rot damage, and this needs to be patched and painted. Here is dry rot on the fascia. That needs to be these wood members now need to be replaced and painted. Here, they put strand board, oriented strand board, OSB on the treads, and we don't really approve that because they cannot hold up to the weather. So plywood is at minimum for stair treads. We don't advise that you do this because it will crumble and deteriorate over time, and it's a lot of damage to the stair. Broken window. Okay, and let me just briefly go over unapproved conditions, and I think that's going to be the end of my presentation. So Unapproved condition is any construction, plumbing, electrical, and mechanical installations or alterations done without written and express permission and approved by the City of Los Angeles Building and Safety, and is considered unapproved. Sorry, I got a call in, so I was a little distracted. So again, if the Building and Safety has not approved the installation or the construction of that, is considered unapproved. Those include window change outs. So here they have to compromise the actual wall. So anytime you're breaking stucco or breaking walls to install the windows, that's considered unapproved. Here you have plumbing that's run out of the building and going into the ground. I don't know where this ABS is going, the black drain pipe is going into the ground for some reason. I think you have to expose you have the exposed copper wire, copper piping coming out of the building. Here, we do not approve flexible venting for mechanical hoods, or microwave hoods, or mechanical vent hoods. It has to be rigid metal. It cannot be dryer vent piping or any kind of flex piping, any flex material, okay? So make sure that it's rigid metal venting only. Okay, here's the garage conversion. You can clearly see where the old garage door was, and they basically sealed that, and this is now a room, and they put a window smack in the middle of it. Here's another example of an unapproved unit. They kind of tricked us and put the garage on the side, the entry on the side, but I actually did this inspection, and there was a whole family living in all three of these garages, but to the front, it looked like it was a garage still intact, but this door right here led to the kitchen, so there was a gas stove, and here at the bottom you can kind of see the drain pipe for the sink. So it was a very dangerous situation because this was their only way out. So these people got relocated. Here is the she shed or man cave that everybody dreams of, but this is unapproved. This is not approved by Building and Safety. It's a large overbuilt structure. So you can build any structure in the city of LA that is 10 by 12 without permits, as long as it's not more than 8 feet high and as long as it meets the requirements of the required setback. So it has to meet general setback requirements from the existing structures and the property line. And lastly, this is the structural hazard. It shows that the building is completely gone off the footing, off the foundation. And this is one of those extreme conditions that we would never want to see. We don't want you guys to ever experience or have the tenants experience. Okay, so this is the design of why we're out there. Okay, briefly, understanding your notice. I thought it was at the end. Understanding your notice, attend the inspection whenever possible or have a representative or adult attend in your absence. Take notes and photos of the pointed out violation. Ask questions if something is unclear. The internet is your friend and sometimes your enemy, so make sure if you're looking on the internet, you apply to the city of Los Angeles, not to the city of New York or Denver. Make sure it applies to what our code is to the city of LA. Call the inspector or the supervisor if you still have any questions. So make sure if you're not able to reach the inspector, you can always reach the supervisor. Okay? And don't wait until it's too late. Make sure that you understand what is being asked of you as soon as you get the notice. Okay? Unless the inspector has requested research due to some sort of discrepancy on your property, notices are generally generated no later than a week from the date of the initial inspection. So usually we try to get those out to you as soon as possible so that you're able to know what you need to work on and get started. Most owners are given the same amount of time to comply with the notice. Okay, owners are given a minimum of 37 days before a reinspection, and repairs must be completed before the inspector arrives to avoid additional visits and related fees. Owners may request an extension after the reinspection has taken place. Inspectors will consider the amount of remaining violations and the extent of the work in making their decision to grant an extension. And of course, I always told you, you can always appeal to the supervisor if you're not getting what you need out of the inspector, but just know A lot of times we're looking at the same issue, so we're going to pretty much make the same judgment, not discouraging you from trying, but just know that your answer could still be a no. Okay. Reading the notice. So the compliance date is in this part here. So 37 days from the initial inspection. The reinspection date. So I just want to add that. So the reinspection date and the compliance date will often be different days. So the compliance date is a computer-generated day that it counts to 37 days from the initial inspection, or 37 days from the date the notice was generated. But that doesn't mean that we're going out for a reinspection on that date. That means that you can still work up into the reinspection date, okay, which is usually a few days or weeks after the compliance date. But don't do work during the inspection. So an inspector will often, we show up at the property on a reinspection. Their owners are still painting or patching or whatever. We cannot wait for that work to be done. We cannot wait around or come back and swing back around. If the work is not completed at the reinspection, at the start of the reinspection, it's considered not done, and we will have to do another visit to confirm that the repairs are complete. Okay, and the contact information for the office that is at the top of the notice always. Okay, and here, understanding your notice. So this is what is called the inspection report, or the reinspection report as it's formerly known. It gives a list of the violations in your unit. And this is at the second to last page usually of the notice. And I always encourage owners to go there because it's the easiest way for you to understand the notice rather than peeling through the pages and trying to read the codes. You can do that. That's what it's there for. Code references are there for you to look at. However, when it comes to a working list or a list to get to your contractor, I always advise you guys to always go off of the inspection report. And here, as you see the example, unit, I guess it's 1343 and a half. In the hallway, there's a missing smoke detector. In the bedroom, there's a missing smoke detector. In the kitchen, there's a missing insect screen. The bedroom, a damaged door. And in the kitchen, there's the door doesn't shut properly. I can't see. I don't have my glasses don't go that microscopic, but you get the picture. So there's always the unit, the area, the violation, and whether a permit is required or not. As you can see towards the bottom, there's a requirement of a permit for some plumbing work that was done. And then the inspector's notes usually give a direction or specifically what the inspector is asking of you. Okay. Severity levels. When it comes to, you see this last column when violation severity level, that's speaking about if you are not to comply, if you should not comply for some reason and your property is put into REIT, that's the level that's going to be assessed to each one of those violations. So if you have a high is 20% of the rent reduced. A medium is 15% of the rent reduced, and a low is 10% of the rent reduced. So just know that, okay? Okay, hiring qualified contractors, make sure you visit the California License Board website. I'm gonna leave this up here for you guys to write down. Okay, and then next slide is the benefits of inspections for owner. I put or, but it should be of. The benefits of inspections for owner, the liability through inspections, inspectors identify code violations which should be repaired. If left unattended, these violations could cause somebody to become injured, or and they could hold the owner responsible. So I'm sorry, I'm reading wrong here. So I'm going to reread the last sentence. If left unattended, these violations could cause somebody to become injured, and they could hold the property owners responsible. Okay, property value. Money invested into your property makes your property more valuable and possibly makes it more desirable to renters. Neighbors who enhance their own property after an inspection also brings value to your property. So often we always see this when we do an inspection or we do SCEPs by neighborhoods, just so if I didn't say that before. So it's not just your property. We're not targeting specific owners, but we usually do it by neighborhoods, by census tract. So oftentimes when we sweep a neighborhood, the neighbors will catch on and start making improvements to their building. If you guys are home during COVID, you saw a lot of people out there where they were bored. They went to Home Depot and bought up all the wood, and, start building and painting and all this other stuff. I did the whole gym in my garage and all this stuff. But, it's a bug that people catch, and, it actually improves the neighborhood. Okay. And the last thing is the broken windows theory. James Q. Wilson and George L. Keeling. Consider a building with a few broken windows. If the windows are not repaired, the tendency is for vandals to break in and break more windows. Eventually, they may even break into the building. And if it's unoccupied, perhaps become squatters and life buyers inside. So that's what we want you guys to always consider. Don't let your properties go unattended. Make sure you're keeping up and maintaining your property so that they're, don't cause visual blight and improve the community. Okay, and these are useful websites. You can Google HCIDLA property activity report to get any status on on any cases that we have on your property. So be it a current case or older case that was closed, you can see that status by going to this. I don't want to give you the direct link because our website is a little not user friendly, so it's easier just for you to Google these words and it'll take you straight there. Okay. Also, for building permits, history at a glance, that's the website. So lacitydbs.org, building info. I want to leave that up for a couple of seconds for you guys to be able to write that down. Okay. And here is our website. So if you're interested, in interest of time and or case-specific issues or of a personal nature, you can address that after the workshop, and you can always email me. I believe I left my contact at the beginning, but if not, it's my first name, Marcel, Marcel, Nicholas, Nicholas, at lacity.org, and I can answer any questions that you may have privately. And but this is our department's website here, hcidla.lacity.org. And I'd like to thank you for your time. At this point, we're going to go through the questions that you might have, and I'm going to check the chat now.
Jeff. Marcel, I'm going to start the poll, the survey.
Okay. We're going to go to the survey?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you can fill out the survey that's on the screen. So while that's happening, I guess, Jeff, do you want to start the question? Thank you, Dan Hacker, for the 110,000 properties. Okay, Edna Monroy, I want to, I think our SCEP fees just increased. I don't remember how much they increased to, but I can get that information to you. You can simply email me and I can get that information if you would like. But it hasn't gone into effect. I don't think it goes into effect until the new fiscal year or the new billing period, which is December. We do not inspect, I think Adriana Santana, we do not inspect mobile parts in our department. So it has to be structures. So permanent structures, meaning with the built foundation and that are not mobile. Okay, Jacqueline Temple, if you can direct your questions to me via email. Again, it's marcel.nicholas@lacd.org. And I can get you to the person you need to speak to, or you can contact our REAP section.
Okay, Marcel, I'm closing the survey. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Ellie, what's classified as urgent or non-urgent? The easiest way to answer that is considered urgent is something that would cause an imminent hazard. So in the wintertime, when the temperatures are 30 degrees and you have elderly people or anybody living in the unit and the temperatures are that low, the heater needs to be working. If there's no hot water, you need to have hot water, you need to have gas, you need to have electricity. So there's a list of items that are considered urgent, but we will always contact the owner if you ever write an urgent notice, just so you know. Okay. Let me go ahead and stop sharing, get back to the chat. How do I get back to the chat? Okay. How many days does the landlord have to fix the urgent repair? So that all depends on what day we cited the urgent issue. So if you're cited Monday through Wednesday, you have until usually that week, which is Thursday or Friday. Sorry, Monday or Tuesday. You have Thursday or Friday to complete the repair. If you are cited on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, you have until that following Monday to complete the repair. So I hope that answers your question. How do tenants request stop work orders? Tenants cannot request stop work orders. However, if you feel that the owner is doing work without permits and we find that the owner is doing work, in fact, that requires a permit, we will issue a stop work order. So all you have to do is file the complaint. Veronica, can you repeat what has to be repaired within 72 hours? Again, that's regarding the 2-day orders. And again, I think I gave you the compliance dates, and that speaks to the urgent, when it comes to urgent matters. And if you have any questions, you can email me again, marcel.nicholas@lacd.org. Andrea, thank you for the YouTube link. Can I make a complaint about my next door neighbor? Yes. So raw sewage is coming out of their pipes and spewing up into yours, and you call, but no one. You call, but told one of the tenants needs to call. Yeah. So if it's something happening is visual, so the inspector can go onto your property and see what you're reporting. We can always address those issues. But if it's an interior complaint that you're complaining about, it has to be someone that can let us onto the property or into that unit. So yes, you can submit a complaint regarding the neighbor's property. However, it has to be something that's visible to the inspector from your property, the vantage point that you have. Okay, because we don't inspect by smell or anything like that. It has to be by our eyes. Okay. Let's consider imminent extreme hazard. Okay, again, you can email me and I can clarify that. Okay. All right, so if you have a heater that's not working in your unit and you live in a multi-family property, so meaning that you have 2 or more units on the lot, you can submit a complaint to our department. We will respond to the complaint regarding your non-working heater, and that's directed to Jacqueline Temple. Okay, Wendell Jenkins. I had 2 apartments that without the move. Okay, so that's a pretty sticky topic regarding the in-out vehicles on the property. We do identify in-out vehicles on properties. However, we do not enforce the removal of them anymore. We used to actually hire a towing company to remove those vehicles. However, that has, we've ended that program. What I can tell you, simply by being cited on the notice, that will aid you in any civil action you take against your tenant regarding the vehicles being stored. And Andrea, again, has put the numbers up for the hotline. Thank you, Andrea. Yes, so ADUs will be subject to SCEP inspection 5 years after their construction. So once the C of O has been issued for your ADU, Michael Bessam, once the C of O has been issued for your ADU in 5 years after the construction of that ADU is now considered a unit and will be inspected on the next on that cycle after those 5 years. Okay. Okay, if you have a tenant that has COVID, I wouldn't suggest that any of your maintenance workers enter the unit. You can call us if you have an open case regarding that issue and speak to the supervisor regarding that issue. So please contact the supervisor for the property area. Work on it. Okay, Sharon, yes, smoke detectors need to be hardwired in apartments. So any units that share walls, you need to make sure you have a hardwired smoke detector. In units that do not share walls, meaning single family dwellings, they are not required to have hardwired smoke detectors. However, if you had a permit and you got so much work done, building safety will require that you upgrade those smoke detectors to hardwired. So it depends. It really depends. But generally speaking, you're not required to have hardwired smoke detectors in single family dwellings, and you are required to have them in any units that share walls. So if you have a duplex or an apartment building, 4 units, 3 units, 16 units, 300 units, they're all required to have hardwired smoke detectors, meaning the wire should connect to the electrical system and it should have a battery backup. How come owners are responsible for damages caused by the tenant? Are we allowed to charge the residents? Okay. So just know, as an owner, you're ultimately responsible for your property. We can't hold the tenant responsible, even though they may have caused the damages. Once the violation has been identified, it's your responsibility to correct that violation. You wouldn't want a stranger coming off the street to repair your property, so that's why we have you be in charge of repairing your property. So I hope that speaks to that. And if you have any questions or concerns regarding that, you can always talk to the inspector's supervisor. Okay. Edna. So yeah, our SCEP inspections occur every 4 years now. It was moved to 4 years a few years ago. It used to be 3 years, but we can keep up. So it's about 4 years. Every 4 years, the SCEP inspection occurs on a property at minimum or at maximum. So you shouldn't have a SCEP inspection twice in 4 years unless you are considered a tier 2 property. And I didn't want to get into that, but there are special circumstances that will have properties often be inspected on the shorter cycle. Okay, I went to the HCIDLA. Okay, we're not HCIDLA. So Antoinette, this is the HCIDLA, so Housing and Community Investment Department. So we're not the same department. Okay, so just know when HCIDLA is Housing Authority and we're the Housing Department, we're two separate departments. Okay. Michael Bessam, if a hardwired smoke detectors are installed within 3 feet of a ceiling fan, can we install additional plugs and smoke detectors in those rooms and the outlets instead? And the answer is no. So you have two options when it comes to that. You can either get a permit or get a licensed electrician to move the smoke detector outside of that 3-foot range, or you can remove the ceiling fan and install a regular light fixture without blades. Thank you, Gabriel, for clarifying. Will SCEP inspections include a seismic requirement? No. Currently, we do not have that requirement to inspect for seismic retrofitting or shutoffs for our department. Okay. Okay, and concerning the ADUs again, will ADUs, Sharon Sakamoto, sorry for butchering your name. Will ADUs need to be included even if they're not being rented? So if you have an ADU on your property and in 5 years it becomes subject to a SCEP inspection, the only way we avoid going to do an inspection on that unit is if you exempt it during the registration period. Edna, I believe, hold on one second, I'm getting, Edna Monroy, well, it's also, okay, I think we're speaking about the moisture damage. I was saying about the showering. Well, it's also because of the moisture damage. There's no fans in the bathroom or windows open to let out the moisture from the showers. That is true, but just so you know, fans are not required if you have a window in that room. So if you have a window in the bathroom, a fan is not required, but it aids, you know, so you can add it on, but it's not required. So that's what we're going. We go by the requirement. Okay. Okay, so Antoinette, I think your question was, where can I look up the history of your previous SCEP inspections? I directed you to our HCIDLA or Los City. Look up Los Angeles Housing Department Property Activity Report and look up your property and see when the last SCEP inspection occurred. You will not be able to see any future inspections of your property because those occur over time and we don't schedule them out that far. So you won't be able to see, well, it's not going to exactly be at 4 years. So it takes our inspection or our clerical staff to actually schedule those out, okay? Very important question, Francisco from Sage. Can a code violation be a reason to break a lease? And the answer is no. That's a civil issue. I would direct you to our rent section so you get more information on that. But code violation in and of itself do not legalize a person to break their lease without civil action, okay? I'm coming to the last of questions. Are the SCEP inspections being done now? And what if the tenants do not want anyone to enter because of COVID? So SCEP inspections have resumed. We resumed inspections after another period of halting due to the stay-at-home orders by the mayor. They resumed back in March, and we are conducting inspections. If the tenants don't want us to come in because of COVID, they have a fear of COVID, or they themselves have COVID, they can elect to say that to the inspector, but they have to say it in person, okay? So that's to answer your question, Sharon. Okay, Sharon has another question. If tenants refuse SCEP inspections, is the landlord responsible for access? So if the tenant refuses the initial SCEP inspection, there's nothing to be said about that. The tenants refuse access. However, if the owner, if the inspector identifies a violation inside that unit, the owner is responsible for making sure that that violation is corrected, and the case cannot be closed until we see that that violation is corrected. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, and NTC, if I didn't clarify, NTC is a notice to comply. We use a lot of acronyms around here. Sorry, I forget. I'm not talking to a fellow employee. So notice to comply is what we mean when we say NTC. You have numbers. Someone said they never received the inspection letter, and the only reason you knew is because it was posted outside that the unit was to be inspected. That often happens when we don't have the proper mailing address. So if that's the case, you might want to call the office or call and speak to the supervisor and see what address we have on record and get that corrected within our system. And most likely, the supervisor will choose to postpone that inspection so that you're properly notified. However, you know, it has to be said that if the property is large and it's like a 10 or 15 unit apartment and you're calling us the day before, tell us that you didn't know about the upcoming inspection until it was posted, there's nothing that can be done by that because we've already notified 15 people who have now taken off of work or made accommodations for us to come in. So we kind of have to work around that, okay? Can an owner be required to advise the tenant when there is an inspection schedule? I have many issues with an off-site manager demanding entry at his convenience and then refusing to make any repairs or give any estimate of time for the repairs by contractors unless he is given free access to the unit in the absence of the tenant, demanding that I'll address this. We'll address this by email. So again, my email is marcel.nicholas, NICHOLAS, at lacity.org. Okay, I think I've come down to my list. Are there any other questions? If you need to raise your hand and we can address those. Jeff, are there any other questions?
These repairs can be claimed for cost recovery program.
Repairs to your unit for general maintenance cannot. I don't think they apply to the capital improvements. Is that what you're talking about? Is that the question?
Yes, that's a question.
Yeah. So no, the normal maintenance of your building cannot be recouped through that. If you're having to, improve your unit, like say for instance, you want to get rid of the wall furnaces you have to install new AC, and you're going to put new carpet in, just completely rehab the unit. That's up to you through the capital improvements. However, we're not asking that in most cases. We ask that you maintain what you have. So that's not really recoupable through capital improvements, but you would speak to a rent representative regarding further assistance on that. I don't want to give you a solid answer on that because I don't work for that staff, okay, or that section. Any other questions?
There's one question about broke a window or if a tenant broke a window or insect screens.
Okay, so the way violations work, the owners are ultimately responsible. We know often in situations where you didn't do it. We know a lot of times where there's punched holes in the wall or in the doors, the tenants actually did it. However, we call upon the owners to repair those items. And if you seek civil action with that person, you can choose to do that. However, we just instruct that the repairs are made. So however you choose to recoup your money, that's up to you. But as long as the repair is made, that's what we're going out there to do. I hope that answers your question.
And one more came in that I responded to. It says, so the inspection covers outside and inside the unit, including plumbing and electrical. That is correct.
That is correct. Okay. I don't know how many questions I may have missed that were not duplicate, but if I did miss your question, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to our department's website and can get more information. I thank you for your time. I want to stay on a couple more minutes to see if anything else comes in, but I really appreciate you guys. I've never presented on Zoom. This is my first time during this whole pandemic. So thank you very much for your time. I've usually done this in person, and I hope I was able to answer your questions or help you in your future inspections. Okay. If tenants have a dog, how shall we deal with it? A dog is a lease issue, so if you do not approve a dog to be inside the unit, that's a violation of the lease. But I don't know if that question applies to during the inspection. I don't know what your question is regarding that, Frank. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Chuck. Oh, during an inspection, I think that is what Frank was asking. If the tenant has a dog, you need to ask the tenant what the dog is so you guys are able to make the repairs. That's the only thing I can ask, can come up with. I don't know if that's really answering your question. Hopefully it is. Oh, James, I didn't realize that was you. You are JJ, okay. Thanks, James. All right, another one came in. That was you, James. Yes, laugh out loud. Miss you, guy. Well, I hope I wasn't too monotone for you guys, and hopefully I answered your questions, and I didn't sound like the clear eyes guy, and I didn't stutter over my words too much, but you know, I tried to give you guys the best I had. Did great for the first time. Thank you, Dorian, Larry. Thank you. I'm at home, and we're doing the best we can. Like I said, usually I give these presentations at our headquarters or through our association, through Department of Owners Association, where we go out and present to the members. But again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or through our website at HCIDLA.lacity.org. And again, I'm always here to answer your questions. Hopefully I'm able to answer them or give it to the person that can answer them for you. Thank you, Francisco. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to the host, and I'm going to end my video here. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.